I'd love to introduce our next conversation, Black Voices in Media. So Michelle Fisher is an accomplished television journalist and host with experience telling stories for traditional news, entertainment, and digital media. She is currently an anchor for Black news channels BNC Go. Prior to joining BNC, Michelle anchored a digital show for NBC News in New York City and served as a fill-in host for Early Today. Michelle's work as an on-air talent has taken her across the country. Michelle was a general assignment reporter and anchor for CBS Boston. She was also an anchor for the NBC Fox affiliate in Monroe, Louisiana. And her journey in journalism started in Los Angeles, where she worked behind the scenes on the assignment desk at KTLA. So welcome, Michelle. I'd also like to introduce Nurse Alice Benjamin, who is a mom, wellness advocate, media personality, and entrepreneur, specializing in cardiovascular health. She's a national board certified and award-winning clinical nurse specialist with over 20 years of experience. Known affectionately as America's favorite nurse, she makes it her business to keep her finger on America's pulse. A self-care advocate and unabashed ice cream lover, she teaches the importance of a balanced, happy life. It's not just treating yourself to a day at the spa or trying to enhance your fad diet. It's making healthy choices daily to counter the effects of emotional and physical stressors. Thank you both for joining. I'm honored to be hosting this conversation. And I know that I went through your bios, but I would just love to pass the mic to both of you to share a little bit more about yourselves before we roll into the questions for today. And thank you in advance to both of you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having us.
I'll let you go first, Michelle.
Okay, good to see you, Alice. We are old friends and just happen to be on the panel together. So we're super excited to both speak with you all this afternoon. Power to Fly, thank you so much for having me. So as you heard, my name is Michelle Fisher and I am a broadcast journalist right now working for the Black News Channel. I host a morning show called Morning Hype where we cover news and sports and entertainment, travel, all of the things. And this is my first time working at an outlet who is committed to telling Black and brown stories, which has been a bit different than the rest of my career when I was in more legacy traditional news outlets, which focused on just, all encompassing news stories. But it's been exciting to work in the role that I'm in now. And as you heard, my journalism journey, as I like to call it, has taken me all across the country. I mean, from East Coast to West Coast, North, South, cold climates, hot climates. But it's been really interesting to see how the media kind of takes shapes in different newsrooms and also how the media takes shapes in different parts of the country, how the media or news media, specifically in my case, how they are respected in some instances, how they're not respected in others. And as a Black woman too, it's been a journey and it's ever evolving. So hopefully I have some great things to add to the conversation today.
And we know that you will. Obviously, I'm really excited to be on the panel. Thank you for having me, Power to Fly family. My name is Alice Benjamin, affectionately known as America's favorite nurse. And I love that. I'm going to humbly take that because that's really what I strive to do. I like to take very complex medical issues and relate that to people so it is something that they can actually digest. I've been in the nursing profession for over 23 years, right? I am a family nurse practitioner and a clinical nurse specialist. And I have to say, although I did not, unlike Michelle and some of my other friends and colleagues that I work closely with, I did not study journalism or plan to actually enter into the media. I'm actually a little Black girl from the Southeast San Diego whose firsthand experience was her father having heart attacks and strokes. And I was seeing this gap in healthcare. So I set out to be the best cardiac nurse in the world. Fast forward my whole journey, I have spent not only taking care of patients in the ICU and the ERs and on the front lines, but also trying to bridge the gap to community. So my mantra is, I love to talk to people before they become my patients. And that passion has afforded me the opportunities to be a health expert on various outlets. And currently, I'm an NBC4 Los Angeles health contributor. So I'm very proud of that. I never sought out to do that, but my natural passions and innately in God's plan, He put me there so I can help champion the important topics of health, wellness. I've been talking about the pandemic almost every day, it feels like. But I'm just really excited to be a part of this conversation because, again, while I'm not necessarily a traditional journalist or reporter, health is very much an important topic, as we've learned these past 2-3 years, especially. And I'm glad that NBC Los Angeles has invited me into the homes of people to talk about these very things and to be a trusted voice for the communities and make sure we insert a fully rounded health conversation for Black and Brown people, and educate the masses.
Hi there. It looks like I was kicked out. So it looks like they weren't ready for me to just share my voice with you all. And I say the greater they. I know you all probably have been in this situation before, but thank you so much for your flexibility. Can you all hear and see me okay now?
We got you.
Okay, thank you so much. I do apologize if those bios were cut off, but let's just roll into some of these questions, as I know we're a little lost on time here. Okay, the media sector offers a space to express individual views and culture values. With your experience, this is a question for both of you in this domain, do you think the media sector in its conventional state has limited Black expression and interaction with the public? Michelle, let's start with you.
I think that anyone who hears that question would answer yes, of course, because we know traditionally media, and when I hear this question, I know obviously I'm a news professional, but when I hear the question, my mind first goes to movies, right? That's one area of media that a lot of people are introduced to at a young age, movies or TV. And you just think of all the conventional ways in which Black stories have been limited to maybe the slave narrative or the housekeeping narrative. And I think that I will say there's progress that's being made and that's changing, but I think it's taken people like Issa Rae, for example, to say, hey, I want to tell stories about Black people just being Black, just being dope, just being who they are, and it not have to be tied to some type of trauma or some type of, situation that could be viewed in a pejorative light. Now, yes, that's part of the Black experience, obviously, so we don't want to not tell those stories, but we also want to make sure we're telling more than just those stories. So I think to answer the question, traditionally, conventional media has limited the stories that are told about Black people and has limited in turn what people that are outside of the Black community know about Black people, right? It's kind of a cyclical thing that has been detrimental to how people view and see communities of color sometimes.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Nurse Alice Benjamin, go ahead and give us your response as well.
Yes, I would agree with Michelle and just want to piggyback. As a healthcare professional, many of the times when I've come on air, it's to talk about what's happening right now, some crisis, someone has died, or there's a new treatment. And one of the things that's always interesting to me is I get to talk about these things, but sometimes when I have the opportunity to talk about these things, I always make sure that I fully round out this conversation, because many of the new treatments, many of the new technologies aren't always accessible or affordable to people of colors. So I think that, especially in my space, as in the expertise of health, it's been very much limited. We talk about health and wellness issues when it comes to maybe February and Black Women's Heart Health or Minority Health Month. But no, Black people have health. There are health issues to know every single day of the year. So I think that we're making progress, and I think people like myself and other people who are talking about health and wellness in this space are making strides, but we've got a long way to go.
Absolutely. And actually, I just finished an interview speaking specifically to that, just how our narrative has not been given the space to blossom, from book writing to music to anywhere that we can share our work in the media and our lived truth and our lived experience. So thank you all for that response. And yeah, we got a lot of work to do. And actually, for those who are feeling just a little, discouraged from all of the, erasure and censorship and just historically speaking, the stories that have been left out, what can they hold on to from your advice? Can you just share for the listener now who's feeling just really discouraged about that? What do you have to share with them?
For me, I'd say no one person can do everything, but every person can do something, right? So, not everybody's going to be Tyler Perry and be able to go out and, create this huge media company that tells Black stories in this fun way. Not to bring Issa again, not everybody's going to be Issa Rae, but there are things that you can do in whatever, in media. Obviously, I work in news. There's TV, there's publishing, there's literary. There's so many different, media is such a broad term and it encompasses so many things. But I think whatever area someone works in, they really can ask themselves how they can best make a small difference. And when everybody does something small, that will in turn make a bigger difference and bigger impact. I will say, and I've seen this come up in my career a couple times though, is not only does it fall on us maybe to create, but also to keep a watchful eye and maybe police a little bit when it comes to our colleagues, right? So one thing that comes to mind is, a couple years ago, we were covering the DNC and Michelle Obama had given a really great speech. And one of my writers said something to the effect of, she came out with guns blazing or something, and she was trying to just speak to how passionate the speech was, right? But as a Black woman, I said, well, wait, we got to change this because we don't want to contribute to the narrative of the angry Black woman. And I don't think this was this young lady's intention to, try to make Michelle Obama look bad, but as a Black woman in that space, you have to be aware of things that someone else that's not in this community is not aware of. A similar situation when I was, early in my career working behind the scenes here in Los Angeles, and Tyrese had come on a morning show at the station I was working at, and one of the anchors after the interview goes, well, he was just so well-spoken. But like, you wouldn't say that about, I don't know, George Clooney or whoever else. And I was so scared. I'm, at the time, like 20 some years old, and I'm like at the bottom of the totem pole in this newsroom. But I went to the EP, I mustered up the courage to go to the EP, and I said, hey, you got to talk to him about that. That's not okay. It's a microaggression. So to answer the question, I think part one is when you can, to create and to find ways to make your voice heard. But when you can't, just make sure you're being diligent about looking after the people that you work with, because sometimes it's just ignorance. Other times, maybe it's something more nefarious where there's racism involved. But regardless, if you're in those spaces, trust that it's, part of God's plan to have you there so you can make sure you're having an impact. So that was a very long answer to the question, but.
Great answer.
I love it. Nurse Alice Benjamin, let us know what you think. I love the communal aspect as well. It's like, how do we work on this collectively? Because even though I didn't make that microaggression or no one made it toward me, like, how can I still share my voice in this space? Nurse Alice Benjamin, what do you think?
Well, I think this is a great conversation. And when you talk about collective, so many times we look at, the mainstream media, the big channels, the big outlets, the big networks, the big producers. But I want to empower everyone that your voice matters. I think that we've seen with this digital age, social media just take off, people creating their own shows, their YouTube shows, their streaming. And so I want to encourage people, anyone who's listening, who's frustrated with the conversations, you don't feel like they're getting the conversation right, or that wasn't the angle, or there was something that was left out, it create, and, do it yourself, do it on YouTube, start somewhere. But I think that we need to get these stories out. We need to get this information out, statistics, let people know that they're not alone. Not everyone feels as empowered to start a digital show or to express themselves on social media because, oh, who's going to listen to me? Well, I can tell you, we're all on our phones, right? We're all on social media. And, that can be very powerful. And I have to say, some of how I got my start and what I'm doing is that I literally saw a void in the conversation. I'd had an experience with my father, dying from a massive heart attack. And, being in the Black community, a retired serviceman who had access to healthcare, but it wasn't equitable. He didn't have access to the same healthcare system as some of my white counterparts. So I hit the floor, boots on the ground. I was having conversations in churches, at people, companies and things like that. And then once this digital and social media era really started booming, I've been able to transcend my message so much further and greater. So I really want people who might be a little bit discouraged to say, get your message out there, so this is your opportunity to create, produce, edit. And I like that, because we don't necessarily just need to be the face or the talent that you see smiling on television. We need to pull some of these strings and get into positions where we can create and deliver the content, where we can control the narrative. Because I think that's a real opportunity so we can get our voices heard.
To go
Absolutely.
back.
Yes. Sorry, Michelle, go for it.
It kind of reminds me what you just said, Nurse Alice, about the first question we were just talking about and how things are kind of changing in conventional media. And now I think, to your point, the gatekeepers there are still gatekeepers there, certainly, but there is greater opportunity now for people to go around the gatekeepers to figure out an in their self, to go through the back door to get their message across. And I think that's really beautiful. So hopefully nobody out there is too discouraged, because I think we can all agree that things are better than they were, but it could still be better.
Absolutely. And I love that. One of my personal reflections is like, what would James Baldwin do? Or like, what would Nikki Giovanni do? You know, if they had the technology that we have today, or if they had the access that we have today, of course, you know, everyone has their own, you know, their own background, their own privileges, and access to resources, but far beyond what a James Baldwin or what a Nikki Giovanni had during that time. So it's like, how can we use this as an opportunity instead of feeling like we are overpowered by it? So thank you so much. And Nurse Alice, I would love to just hold the mic on you for a little bit. As you have made your mark in the health-oriented media space, tell us more about the progress that you've witnessed in terms of awareness regarding cardiovascular health ailments.
Well, you know, we've made some progress. I'm happy to see that we've made some progress. We've made a lot of information more accessible to people, because historically you'd have to go to your healthcare provider to get this information. You'd have to pay some type of copay or some type of fee. And we know that there's still a large amount of people who don't have access to healthcare or access to quality healthcare. So they've not been able to have this information. So now we are starting to see more organizations. I've been a longtime volunteer with the American Heart Association and AARP, and just using those two powerhouses, for example, we do several free online town halls. We partner with churches and schools in the community, any type of organization that wants health information. We're able to now share this information with people. And I like that, because before there's a copay to come see me to get this information. Now I get to talk to you about how to keep you out of the hospital, so you don't have to see me in the ICU or in the ER. So I love that. We do still have some work to go, because we also know that there's a technology gap. Even though we all, you know, many of us have cell phones and computers, there's still a fair amount of us who don't. And so we do have a technology gap, but we need more of us to identify and speak up about these things. And I'll just use an example with the pandemic. Oh, we're gonna, everyone's gonna distance learn. It's gonna be fine. We're gonna prevent, the spread of infection, which is great in theory, but how many children were left behind, especially in communities of color, because they didn't have laptops at home, because they didn't have Wi-Fi to access these things? So I believe we have identified things that we need to work on, but we still have things to do. But again, we have to speak out about these things. We have to address the elephant in the room. But I'll also say this: being a Black woman with the opportunity to talk about health and wellness on television has meant the world for me, because I get to show other Brown and Black women that, and also on top of that, being a nurse, because historically, white male physician talking about healthcare and wellness issues, often not very approachable, kind of dry, just not someone you really feel comfortable with. Well, you can come talk to Auntie Alice, okay? So we're gonna have a conversation where you feel comfortable, where we can build trust and develop a rapport, and get people to really reconsider some things when it comes to their health and wellness. So I'm sorry, I probably went off on a tangent, but there you have it.
Oh, it's accepted, and I would love to have you go deeper, but unfortunately we don't have so much time. So actually I want to just bridge this question over to Michelle, and I have just a follow-up kind of question as well for you to expand on a little bit more. So clearly, Nurse Alice, you are, representing this space that you said, of course, historically speaking, nurses, Black women, especially being on television has not been something that we've had access to. So Michelle, how can the media play a more integral role in promoting a diverse and complete picture of society, in your opinion?
How can the media, I think, for starters, just listening to the media can listen, I guess, to who wants to have a seat at the table instead of automatically assuming they know what's best, right? So to explain what I mean by that, in my daily role, one of the things we often do is we go to social media to see what people are talking about, right? So we are not assuming that because I'm a journalist, I am all knowing and I know what people want to know. It's no, what are you all talking about? What questions do you have? You help me better inform you and do my job. So I think as a broadcast journalist and in terms of broadcast media, it's kind of a twofold where, part of our job is to give people information that they maybe didn't know they needed, but also it's to say, hey, we're listening to you. We're on social media, or we're looking at your emails, or we're answering your questions for you to tell us what you want to know, for you to tell us what you feel is lacking in your community and how we can help as journalists to get you those answers, or give you just better representation, or whatever it may be. So does that answer the question? Hopefully it does.
Oh, she froze, I think.
Yeah.
I think you did a beautiful job at answering the question. And while we're waiting for her to come back, I guess I'll just add to that. I love that, and this is another thing that I also like to do. I want to know, what questions do the viewers have? Because it makes no sense for me to come on and just dictate what I think you should know, because you may know what I'm sharing, or you may just not have an interest in it. And one of the things that, especially in the aspect of health and wellness, is I need to meet people where they're at. And there's research out there that discusses health literacy. And really, again, my job is to empower you and educate you with information that you didn't already know, so you can make a healthier choice for you and your family. So I really love the opportunity of getting to do that. And again, Michelle, just being a woman, it's a great time to be a Black woman. I'm just going to say that. I love this. I love being able to, for one, just model, because when people can see it, they can believe it. So I've had several nurses reach out to me, and other healthcare professionals, and just people in general, who have sent me emails saying, we love seeing you on television. Thank you for telling that story. Thank you for painting a well-rounded picture when it comes to health and wellness, because I really want to address the elephant in the room, the questions that you need to know, and not just popular sound bites. While we know sound bites are important, yes, I get it, but let's make the sound bite make sense.
And I think too, for you being a Black woman, it helps with some of the mistrust. We know that's a big part of health and wellness in the Black community. It's just the mistrust that's happened because of things that have been done to our community in the past. But you, being an African-American woman, I feel like that makes people that maybe are a little bit apprehensive look at you probably and say, she has my best interest at heart, because she's part of my community. She's living it with me. So I think that's beautiful, and I'm very proud of all you're doing. For that, you mentioned this. You said that you didn't, traditionally study journalism, but we actually met in some journalism classes at UCLA.
Yes,
and so it's really been good to see, the arc of your career. So.
Well, thank you so much. And so, but kudos to you, because you are really doing it. I feel like I'm a guest in your house. But mind you, and just for people who are wondering, how did a nurse, enter into the media space? Well, I just felt there was a need, there was a voice that I wanted to convey, and I wanted to reach the masses, again, talk to people before they become my patients. So I've been so excited about this avenue, which I didn't even know existed, to be able to talk about health and wellness. But mind you, I did have to be respectful of house rules. So I took, I had to take some classes, learn how to conduct myself in the media space, because while Michelle makes it look easy, boy, it's not always as easy as Michelle makes it look.
Oh my goodness! And speaking of making it easy, I'm so sorry that I kept getting knocked out, and I'm learning a lot from this experience. And really, it's more, it's not as easy as it looks. So especially when the technology isn't working in our favor. But you all have shared so much knowledge. We are actually at our time. Thank you so much. Can you remind people how they can connect with you, since we have come to an end with this conversation? But we want to make sure people can support the great work that both of you are doing.
Well, it is certainly an ongoing conversation, and there's probably so much that we were not able to get into. So if anybody has any questions or comments or anything for me, even if there are any students on that maybe have work that they want me to look at, I'm always happy to do that. So they can find me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Michelle Fisher. So that's Michelle, and then Fisher. And then I'm on Instagram at Miss Michelle Fisher, and that's Miss Michelle Fisher. Yep.
And for anyone who has any questions, whether it's about, what I'm doing in media and the health space, or maybe, I get a lot of questions about health and wellness, and I can direct you in the right direction. I'm on all things social at Ask Nurse Alice. I made it easy for y'all. I also have a website, asknursealice.com. And if you're interested, I also have a podcast, Ask Nurse Alice. So you can tune into that to hear various health and wellness topics. And, it's been helpful to many people. So they've told me. So I invite everyone to join me there as well.